Firebolts are the future of Warlock. Let that sink in. One of the least used grenades in all of Destiny 2 are about to become the most broken ad clear weapon we have to date, just because Bungie decided to lower the cooldown to almost nothing. Hello everybody, I'm Hater and welcome back to another Destiny 2 build video, where in this one, we're going to be making a build for bottom Dawnblade so we can abuse the new changes coming to Firebolt grenades. Before we get into that though guys, remember if you use the build and you enjoy the video, leave a like, comment anything you want to see me cover in the future, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified whenever a new build video is out. But on November 18th, Bungie released a new TWAB talking about the upcoming changes to the overall sandbox. And for the Warlock, one of the changes that stuck out to me the most was the one directed towards Firebolt grenades, where the overall cooldown is going from 82 seconds to 64 seconds, then having their per bolt damage reduced from 90 to 65, at the same time increasing its overall damage by 15% in PvE. Overall, this means we're able to spam Firebolt grenades much more often as a whole, especially with 100 discipline. But combined with the mods and exotics we'll be using in today's build, we're going to be able to bring Firebolts back to the golden era of Sunsinger Warlock from Destiny 1. But not Viking Funeral, trust me, I want to forget that as much as the next guy. No, stop, please! Starting out with the mods that make the build, we're going to be focusing on Elemental Wells, basically giving us ability energy and more whenever we pair it with other mods. More specifically, we're going to be using the mods Elemental Ordnance and Explosive Wellmaker as our main sources of creating wells. This basically means that whenever we get a kill with our Firebolt grenade, Elemental Ordnance is going to create one solar well, and Explosive Wellmaker is going to be creating another solar well on top of that because it's proccing the bottom Dawnblade's perk, Igniting Touch. To make this even better, we're going to then use the mod Bountiful Wells on top of that, so each one of our well making mods create an additional well. So now whenever we get a kill with our Firebolt, it's going to be creating 4 solar wells instead of 2 now. These 3 mods together are basically going to be the bread and butter of the build. But we're not done yet with the mods because we can make those wells give us even more benefits than just ability energy. And I'm talking about making them give us stacks of Charge with Light whenever we pick them up with the mod Elemental Charge. And because we're using a solar subclass, every single one of those solar wells are going to count as 2 stacks of Charge with Light instead of 1. Then to use those stacks of Charge with Light, we have a lot of options in the Charge with Light department. But the best one I think is still going to be Protective Light if we ever decide to take this build near endgame content. However, if we want to take this build another step further and use it to blitz through lower tier content, not including champions, we can use Stasis arms and slot 2 of the mod Grenade Kickstart, giving us right around 30% of our grenade energy back every time we throw a Firebolt. As far as the build goes, that's basically going to cover all the major mods. Some of the other ones that I could mention are things like Ashes to Assets, Bomber, and Innervation, which will all benefit our grenade making capabilities, but they aren't worth focusing on as an actual topic. For the exotics, however, we can only effectively use 2 of them because looking at the list of Warlock exotics, there is literally nothing that will enhance Firebolt grenades specifically. But both the Nezarec Sin and Verity's Brow exotic helmets will still be able to do what we want in this build, where Nezarec Sin gives us regen in all of our abilities, including our super via Abyssal Extractors whenever we get kills with void damage, and Verity's Brow increases both our grenade damage and regen whenever we get a kill with a weapon matching our subclass type, aka Solar. This just means it heavily comes down to what weapons we want to run in the loadout, because depending on if we are running Nezarec Sin or Verity's Brow, we're going to be pairing them with weapons that will proc their exotic perks. And in the case of the 30th anniversary, we're going to be able to take advantage of the newly reworked Adrenaline Junkie, so that every time we get a kill with our Firebolt, it's going to give our weapon 5 stacks of Adrenaline Junkie and increase the damage it deals by 33.3% until it either runs out or we don't get kills with the weapon and grenade again. So, with that in mind, I made a list of weapons that we're going to talk about that will be great combined with the build. Some with Adrenaline Junkie and some not. The first one being the Deafening Whisper Void Waveframe Grenade Launcher you get from the Tangled Shore. And before you ask, no, it does not have Adrenaline Junkie, even though I wish it did. I highly recommend that you guys actually go to the Tangled Shore and get this weapon before it's gone, because not only is it the only waveframe grenade launcher in the game that we can use as of recording this, it's absolutely disgusting combined with any Nezarec Sin oriented build or any explosive Wellmaker build in general. Because not only can it proc the mod Explosive Wellmaker, but it can proc Abyssal Extractors and feed us a huge amount of ability energy every time we get kills with it. Don't disregard Adrenaline Junkie from this loadout, because we can still use our kinetic slot to run a few things like Fatebringer with Explosive Payload, or Osmosis and Adrenaline Junkie, or the Last Breath and Judgment from Prophecy with Demolitionist and Adrenaline Junkie. Realistically, you just cannot go wrong with your kinetic slot and Adrenaline Junkie weapons. But if we are using a Void Adrenaline Junkie weapon specifically for Nezarec Sin, we're going to be looking towards the Override activity and get the Pulse Rifle Grid Skipper from there, because it is the only Void kinetic shooting ammo type that can roll the perk Adrenaline Junkie, or at least until we get new weapons from either 30th Anniversary or Witch Queen. Now, what about weapons that will be synergizing with Verity's Brow? We can just do the same thing with the kinetic slot and use a neutral Adrenaline Junkie weapon there, or we can use our exotic slot for the hand cannon Sunshot. Because not only Sunshot will be giving us death throws, giving our grenade more damage and more energy back per kill we get with it, it's also going to be creating solar elemental wells from Verity's Brow. If we don't want to use our exotic slot though, we can still use an Adrenaline Junkie roll of the Jurassic Green Pulse Rifle from Festival of the Lost, which I hope you would kept around after DMG literally said that keeping one would be a great idea, but I digress. If you don't have one though, you can still get a Borrowed Time SMG from Gambit or use the Punching Out Sidearm from Strikes, both capable of rolling Adrenaline Junkie. So let's see here. Mods, done. Exotics, done. Weapons, also done. Now let's actually make sure that everything is set up right by looking over my Warlock's armor and giving you an example of where every mod can go. Starting off with the helmet, this can be pretty much any element you have or want with it. I personally enjoy having it be solar or stasis though, just so I can slot in the mod's power preservation or ashes to assets depending on what I'm running. Then of course over at the end of the helmet I'm going to be putting the elemental charge in because it doesn't count as any energy type. Moving over to the arms, these are pretty much going to be solar, but you could have them be stasis depending on what element you choose to have your helmet. As for the mods, we're going to be putting Bountiful Wells in here just because it doesn't cost as much. So whenever we do an activity that involves champions, I have enough space to put any amount of champion mods I choose. The only thing important to note is that if you do decide to run Grenade Kickstart and have the arms as stasis, you're going to want to make sure that your helmet is solar so that you can trade Elemental Charge and Bountiful Wells between them. Next up is going to be the chest piece, and we can pretty much use any element we want with this because at the end we're going to be using a neutral elemental ordnance. Then because resist mods are so cost efficient, we can use any combination we have to fit the scenario. Then over at the boots, we're going to want these to be void and put the protective light into. Then of course you can fit in any ammo scav of choice depending on whatever you're running, and then if you have enough room you can slot in a mod called Better Already, so that whenever you pick up an orb of power, it's going to instantly start healing you. Finally, over at the bond, we're going to want this to be solar so that we can fit our explosive Wellmaker into it. As for the rest of the bond, it's heavily dependent on our loadout or fire team, because if we don't have anyone running particle deconstruction, this is where we can use it. Then if we're not running fusion rifles or linears, we could slot the other artifact mod Withering Heat instead, so that whenever we hit a champion with an ability, mostly our grenade, it's going to apply a 30% debuff to them for 8 seconds. Overall, this is just going to be a template that will help you guys create your own version of it, so feel free to swap any of the energies around or where the mods go. But that is actually going to be wrapping up the video for today as per usual. I really appreciate it if you took your time to watch the video all the way to the end. But if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments and I will get to them as fast as I can. And you guys can also follow me over at my Twitch where I play D2 and other variety games. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next build video. Bye bye.